Here, quiet. Quiet, you. Quiet, you. Why is there a peacock outside? Jesus. When did a peacock show up? Welcome to the shop. I'm Jared, and this is Wrench Every Day. We have Pira occasionally showing up in frame with us today, and we are at Site B here in Georgia. Now, today's a big day. We have huge, major updates for our Lotus Esprit Turbo project. Even though it's all the way down in Florida at Freddy's shop, we've got big updates here in Georgia. Next to me, we have Earl Leaker. Earl has major updates also coming at you today. And speaking of big, important updates, today's a perfect opportunity for you to go ahead and update your home and auto policies. And today's sponsor, Policy Genius, makes that easy. Policy Genius is America's leading insurance marketplace. It's one place where you can go to shop home and auto policies and combine them together for fantastic savings. They've saved shoppers up to $1,055 a year over what they were paying for home and auto insurance. What could you do with $1,055 each year? Probably a new project car or two. It's alarming the number of people who don't have proper home and auto coverage. I've had several incidences where, even in Georgia, remnants of hurricanes have caused substantial property damage and damages to my vehicles. I've had trees land on my truck, quick phone call, and my insurance took care of it. My home got hit by 4 trees, calls to insurance, and took care of it. At the end of the day, Policy Genius will make sure you're paying the best possible rates for that coverage with the major carriers. Policy Genius represents you. They have your best interest in mind, so as they're shopping, they're going to ensure you get the best care. This service and care with their customers is why they've earned a 5-star rating with Trustpilot and Google. Hey, even Dwayne the editor approves and has recently used it for some insurance policies of his own. Now, if you're ready to go ahead and update and check and make sure you're paying the best possible price for your home and auto insurance, head on over to Policy Genius right now using our link, policygenius.com/wrench. Answer a couple questions about yourself and your property, and then Policy Genius takes it from there. They'll compare rates from Progressive, Allstate, all the major carriers, and find you the lowest rates. You don't have to be a genius to use Policy Genius. Policy Genius is going to get you started on saving a bunch of money. And let's be honest, when it comes to insurance, that's something you want to make sure you go ahead and get right. All right, let's get going on to the Lotus update. Again, I don't have the Lotus here. It's in Florida, so it's not a lot of direct progress on the car, but a very, very crucial part of the car has been repaired. This is our cylinder head, and if you remember going back, we bent all of these. These are our valves. And when that timing belt stripped all of its teeth and the car tried to start a couple times, it bent every one. Usually you'll get some. This one is an overachiever and bent every one. It took a little while to get done. Our friends at Grimes Machine Shop Twister Engines, they went through, they've done several of these cylinder heads, and when it came time to getting the valves replaced, there weren't off-the-shelf units. Who knew early 90s British sports cars would be hard to get parts for? So we actually had to send out, and they had complete custom stainless steel valves made. These are similar to what you would put in a very, very, very high horsepower car that's going to have a ton of abuse done to it. And we're aiming to maybe make 400 wheel. We'll be pretty happy with out of this car. So they look amazing. We're going to go a little bit into how a cylinder head works, but we're going to have a fun, not finger wavy transition because I made it by the machine shop one day while they were actually working on the cylinder head, where Merlin, a legitimate wizard name, was working some on porting the exhaust valves, and we talked just a little bit briefly about the airflow through there. So whatever transition magic Dwayne wants to put in here, let's go there. Clap. Poof.
So what we're doing right here is, I actually made it in perfect time to catch Merlin here at Grimes Machine Shop. When you look inside our intake valves, there's a lot of heavy steps. And let's see if I can get one that's not been touched yet. Come on, there we go. Where you can see these sharp edges. And when it comes to airflow, a sharp edge is never a good thing. When you think that you have the valve covering almost that entire hole, you have to optimize all of your airflow to come in around the edge of it. And when you have these sharp edges, it creates small turbulent airflow, which then is a high pressure point, which is going to block your airflow. So by coming in here and matching the smoother port very carefully, we're going to allow that airflow not to be turbulent, no high pressure zones, and maximize air coming in and going out. Just a very slow process, 16 times. So repeat that 15 more.
Okay, now that we are back to the current time, let's take a quick look again at some of the things done. One process done while machining ahead is the actual machining, making sure the bottom is nice and flat. You can see just how pretty these stainless valves are if our camera will focus for us. They'll go through and glass blast and just get all the old funk out of the cylinder head and make it look brand new. So this has been fully reconditioned. It's not final torqued in the sense that the cam towers aren't bolted down or torqued down, because we have to remove all of it in order to go ahead and install that back onto our engine. One thing that Merlin took the time to do, and I don't want to set this down because these valves protrude, but these are our cam followers in their lifter buckets, and underneath that are where shims are located, because you need to adjust and have a very specific clearance between the cam lobe here and the cam bucket. When we took that apart, we covered it a little bit that normally you have solid shims, they're just one puck, they kind of look like a small coin. This had those, and then they also took shim stock and kind of cut sort of a circle out. It was a really awful looking shape to make up those clearances. I'm not going to say that's the wrong way of doing it, but we're not going to say it's right either. So moving on from what was not necessarily right when this was worked on before, we're going to go over and just kind of show you just a cool visual of how a cylinder head, how these overhead camshafts work. So you've heard the terms camshaft, cam lobe, valve, opening. There's all kinds of things you've heard about a cylinder head. What exactly does all of that mean? Well, in a 4-stroke engine cycle, you have compression, you have power, you have exhaust, and then you have intake stroke. Those are your 4 phases of what the engine's working. You have the piston coming up. While it's compressing the air, both of these valves would be closed like it is here. Spark plug, which would live in that hole, then ignites that fuel mixture. The piston then comes down. That's your power stroke. Next would be your exhaust stroke. So you see how these small exhaust valves are open. Piston will start to come up, and it's pushing all of that spent exhaust air out. Once it reaches the top, you end up to the point where your intake valves just start to open, and as they're opening and that piston starts to come back down, it will draw in that fresh, nice, clean air mixture. Get to the very bottom, then you have all sets of valves closed, comes up, and we start all over again. And then during the engine cycle and you hear cam profiles and overlap, what overlap will be is when you have both sets of valves open. What this big overlap ends up doing is at slow RPMs, when you're not needing this massive overlap, you get a really choppy idle. So that's where you see some of the old big domestic cars with this just insane surging, choppy idle, that awesome exhaust note. That comes from a camshaft that's really meant for lots of RPM. You also have what's called valve lift. that references how tall this tip is. So when it's all the way down and fully extending it, how much is this valve moved from closed? On a turbo car, the cam profile generally has a lot of lift to just give the maximum area for that air to be forced in by that turbocharger. The downside is when you end up with such a high lift, you have too aggressive of a cam profile, and this is very borderline. When you end up with a lot of lift and you don't have a lot of profile, where this is kind of a balloon shape and it has this wedge, you end up into a situation where you can almost be slapping and throwing the valve open rather than a gentle, gradual motion. So when you get too extreme, you can end up with some weird harmonics with the spring bouncing, so that's where you end up with some dual springs. There's a lot of science that goes into picking the perfect profile of cam, spring, and that process. This is just a quick kind of introductory, here's what these parts are, here's how they work. Now, given that I don't have the car here, and I don't have the engine, or the transmission, or any of the other parts, and speaking of parts, we're still waiting on a lot of little gaskets and seals and O-rings to come. So that kind of covers the extent of our Lotus update. It's not a forgotten project. It's not being put away. It's definitely getting done. We're just having to wait on stuff to get here so we can work on it. The other thing we need to wait on is me getting back down to Florida. Unfortunately, on my trip back from Vice Grip Garage, helping him out with Independence, which did pretty well. It had some of the quirks we were worried it might have, and one totally unexpected quirk, but Independence did great. Our fuel injection did flawless, and I'm happy that it's learning curves and getting a little bit better. But on the way back, I'm a tall guy and don't fit in a plane very well, and kind of tweaked my back, and have spent 5 days in bed waiting for the back to feel a little bit better. It's messed some of the travel schedules up, but we are back in progress. So, forgotten projects. The Lotus is definitely not one of them. It's just parts. I'm not down there working on it because of a back, and our next update that I promised you, kind of a forgotten project, not a forgotten project, but it sure does look like it. And that's our friend Earl. He's kind of dusty. That's a really forgotten project, but that's going to get worked. But Earl, we have our 2JZ swapped Nissan 300ZX with the Pac-Man Z Widebody kit made by KBD. It's a really cool, awesome kit car with lots of fun progress. We made that side exit exhaust and we moved on to wiring. Now, some of you kind of noticed in our ISF videos that Freddie and I apparently on camera seemed a little bit, short with each other, and that is because of Earl. Freddie's stealing his engine back. He wants his 2JZ back, and I agree with the decision. It's going in a very important, good thing, and it should go there. I'm just kind of tired that poor Earl just seems to get delayed, and things keep happening that end up making it not a running car. Needs wiring, but we're taking it apart because Freddie wants his engine back. And again, it's his, I understand, but this is where I take over Earl. And we are going to do something with Earl that we hadn't planned to do. Unfortunately, a lot of projects end up not always having a plan. We finish them, and they don't have a defined purpose. They become very good working vehicles. Johnny Rev, he works very regularly. Dwayne's taking him to the dump. I use him regularly, just out running errands, picking up lumber. He's an awesome working truck and does that job. I want cars to have jobs. Now, I mentioned Independence and Vice Grip Garage going to Cletus in cars. We should probably go ahead and get ourselves a burnout car. It's a lot of fun. It's horrible on the drivetrains. It's very rough on them. It burns them up. But who wants to see a 300ZX burnout car? We're going to get started on it. It's going to take a little bit because if we're going to do something, we're going to overdo it. And when I say overdo it, this is a very, very precise artist's rendition of what I have planned for Earl. And by very precise and artist, it was me. I put it together. But overlay it right now. So Freddie and I are still trying to decide exactly if we are going to go with a big block or an LS, but we both agree that it must have a giant 871 or larger blower on top. We're gonna put the intercooler spacer, and we need the biggest ProCharger hat bird catcher on top of it as possible. We want the top of the engine to be almost as tall as me, and I'm 6'7". So, as fantastic as the 2JZ powered 300ZX Earl leaker is going to be, somehow we're going to have more room putting a big block in it with giant blower. That really probably wasn't what anyone was expecting for Earl's fate, but I'm tired of it just kind of having to wait. Now, I say tired of having to wait. It's going to have to wait a little bit because these parts aren't cheap, and we're going to have to get them all together. But I think it's much more exciting for Earl. He started off with a Nissan V8. Now we're going to a domestic General Motors V8 with massive blower, and our goal is to get it out to events. You're going to see us at some of these burnout contests. It's way too much fun to just keep sitting on the sideline. So we are going to go crazy and just, you know, questionable choices. This is not a questionable choice. It is the right choice. It's exciting. I'm excited for it. So we're going to have lots of cool stuff coming there. So big changes coming for Earl. We have a cylinder head for the Lotus. We still need lots more small parts. We appreciate you guys constantly sending us links, helping us find these parts that we're going to need on the cars. There's an amazing amount of you Lotus enthusiasts. You guys are just as crazy as we are for wanting to keep these things going, and we love you for it. And that is going to do it for today. I know we're wrench every day, and the only wrenching I did was turning a camshaft. Hopefully you guys understand with my back. Once again, big thank you to today's sponsor, Policy Genius. Please check them out. PolicyGenius.com/wrench. Get yourself a good quote, save some money so you can join us on this crazy wrenching. I hope you guys are very excited about the future of Earl, because I am. If you can too, head over to bunkerbranding.com, check out our merchandise. We appreciate you guys selling out those roadside assistance shirts in 4.5 hours. That was huge. Thank you so much for that support, and we love seeing the pictures of you wearing them. So thank you again for that and all the support you do with us there. I'm shooting the outro and realized somebody ended up going and taking a nap, and you didn't get any screen time. Pyrrha, sit. Good girl. Pyrrha, high five. Good job. High five. Oh yeah. Pyrrha, bag. Oh, Pyrrha, burp. Okay, that works too. Nice. Such the lovely lady. For real, we're going to wrap up now that we've got some Pyrrha time. I'm Jared, reminding you to always make questionable choices. And when it comes time to put giant engines in that car, that one there, do it. Don't question, just do it. We'll see you.